Hey groupers, Pastor Marshall here. Hope that you are ready to dig in to our next passage in the book of Acts. I want to get everybody talking, and in order to do that, try to answer this question. Who is under your care? Who do you look after? Who do you influence? Take a moment and just share with your group who you shepherd. Who do you influence? And then, second, while everybody's talking, when was the last time that you had a family reunion? My family doesn't really have family reunions. I have a wedding coming up very soon, and that's kind of like a family reunion, but some families officially have family reunions. What is yours like? When you get together with your family, what do you discuss? And were there tears at the end? This is very much a family reunion that Paul has with the elders of Ephesus. And so just get you thinking about, what do you talk about at a family reunion? How many tears? How much joy? I think all of it was wrapped up here. Well, Paul begins this conversation with the elders by reviewing their shared history. And he basically says in verse 20 and in verse 27, I did everything that was necessary for you to believe. So that leads me to this. What do you think the basic teachings of the church should be? If we're going to, as teachers, leaders, cover our bases when we teach people, what are the basics? What would we cover? What has Paul covered when he can say that I'm clear conscience? You know everything you got to know. What would that look like? Next, Paul says he's going to Jerusalem, verse 22. And he knows that there's going to be persecution involved. Do you think that we ought to be involved in things that are going to be difficult, that are going to bring persecution? Why would God want us to be involved in suffering? Why would God plan for us to suffer? Do you think that God wants us to suffer? Talk about that. The first advice that Paul gives us is to keep watch over ourselves. He says to them, keep watch over yourselves and then keep watch over the flock. Well, what do you think that the essential pieces of self-care are? If we're going to be keeping watch over ourselves, what are the basics? What do we do to keep looking after ourselves, making sure that we're healthy? Now, Paul is a little scary in verse 29. He says that wolves are going to come, not regular wolves, savage wolves. Have you ever seen the church attacked in your life? What did it look like? What savage wolves have you seen? Paul goes on in verse 30 to say that some of these savage wolves are going to be from among you. They're going to rise up from among you, and that they're going to lead the flock astray. Have you seen this? Have you seen savage wolves from the outside? What did that look like in your church story? And have you seen savage wolves from the inside? What did that look like in your church story? I always want to encourage you, be careful with names. If you can tell stories without using names, that's probably the best. Well, finally, talk about Jesus' words in verse 39. It is more blessed to give than it is to receive. You're not going to find these words in the gospel. They're not there. But they're clearly Jesus' words. I mean, they just reek of Jesus-isms. Well, just talk about, what do you think about these words? It is more blessed to give than to receive. What does that look like in our lives? Well, every week I want to challenge you to talk about what you like. I love the deep relationship between Paul and these Ephesian elders. I love it. It's beautiful, and I love that I have that kind of relationship here with our leaders, with our eldership. Those of you in our congregation may not know, but the elders and I am an elder as well, but we are a brotherhood, and it looks a lot like this, a lot of deep, tender caring for one another. What do I dislike? Well, the idea that men would arise from within our own congregation and try to lead the flock astray or try to attack our flock. I don't like that. That makes me nervous. Well, application. This week we're just talking about being shepherds, and so I talked to you about what a shepherd looks like, and we ended with this beautiful story of the Emperor of China choosing a new emperor, and just a reminder that if we're going to lead like Jesus, we're going to lead with humility and honesty. A shepherd does a lot of things, but the good shepherd, humility and honesty. So we're going to put those things first in our leadership. Well, I hope that you have a great discussion with your group, and I look forward to seeing you next weekend for the next step in the book of Acts. God bless.